Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
I'm Dr. Jen Ashton, your host for Season 2 of The Visibility Gap, a podcast presented by Cigna Healthcare. Throughout this season, we'll be tackling something vital, the women's health gap. We'll hear from real people and experts as we unpack important topics like maternal health, menopause, and heart disease. Listen in and download the new season wherever you get your podcasts.
Shopping is hard, right? But there's a better way. Stitch Fix online personal styling makes it easy. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And she sends just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and styling tips. I keep what I love and send back the rest. It's so easy. Personal styling for everyone. Get started today at stitchfix.com/Spotify. That's stitchfix.com/Spotify.
All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is A Trial by Podcast.
With a side of Bloody Mary.
It's the sound of the Bloody Mary that's saving my life right now. This episode is sponsored by Bloody Marys, because otherwise
Bloody Marys by Bill.
Kelsey would not be able to function at this moment without it.
Yep.
Me and Emily had too much fun last night. If you follow us on Instagram and Facebook, you saw
me getting down.
You saw Emily bringing the vibes. Here's the thing about Emily is she brings the vibes everywhere.
I do bring the vibes.
Not just to the pod.
Yep.
So if you don't follow us, you're missing out on Emily breaking it down on the dance floor.
Hell yeah.
So we actually just recorded. We just finished recording an episode. We've already been recording for like 2 hours today.
Yes.
We recorded a collab episode with a podcast called Chillworthy. We had so much fun.
Yeah, Brent and Talia are like two of my new favorite people.
Yeah, like we just had such a good time with them. I really think you're going to love it, and I think you'll love their podcast. So check out their feed. They're called Chillworthy. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, I think all of the main podcasting platforms, and you can follow them at Chillworthy Podcast.
Yeah, they bring the vibes.
They bring the vibes. So with that being said, when Emily first got here, we were like, oh, we have to do like we're going to have so much tangent. And it's not really a tangent when we do it in the beginning, by the way.
Yeah.
I keep calling it a tangent, but like we're going to have so much like opening banter. But now I feel like we're so deep that, I don't know. Do you have
I feel like I did want to talk about something, though.
I know.
And I can't remember what it was.
Here's the thing is like me and Emily recorded an episode last weekend, and we were struggling also last weekend. And we couldn't get through the story, so we just were like talking about some like business topics we have, and then also some true crime news. And like it was a
full tangent episode.
Yeah, it was an hour long.
Yeah, I actually had fun.
I know, but the freaking quality, it turned out horribly. We can't even release it. So I feel like I had a whole list of like business I addressed last time, and I can't think of it now that we're gonna miss. Let me go to my notes and just see. Oh, I guess the only business I have, my dad, he's giving us a lot of constructive criticism lately, which I get from everybody else. I don't even, but the one that, no, he told me, he was like, you should tell all of the listeners to tell 5 friends about the podcast. I think 5 is a lot. Tell 2 friends that love true crime, send them an episode. If you guys do that, like, It would really help us. So,
Yeah, agreed.
like just next time your friends are talking about true crime or there's a new Netflix documentary out and people are talking about it, say, hey, if you like true crime, you should check out this podcast. Did
we got a DM or a comment that somebody like passed somebody in the airport?
Oh my God, yes. We got a review and I'm not going to, I'm going to say her name. I feel like she won't care. I feel like she'll be happy.
The sweetest review I've ever read.
Yeah, actually, let me just shout out this whole review. And if you guys leave a really sweet review on Apple Podcasts, like we'll read some of them. I know we haven't done that in the past, and people have already left reviews, so sorry about that, and thank you. So her name was Arlene, who left this review, and the review said, this was like the best, and all of these 5-star nice reviews like make me smile. She said, I found this podcast a few weeks ago. The logo, show picture, image caught my attention, and I've been in a deep listen ever since. I think the information presented is well researched and factual, and it's presented neutrally, which I was like,
hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I try to be neutral, but sometimes I feel like I'm really not neutral, but I appreciate that.
No, I think you do a pretty good job about that.
Now, she said, I like the interaction between both hosts, their commentary and banter. I like that I laugh sometimes, which is odd considering we're talking about murder. I personally like the longer episodes or the multiple part episodes because I can listen while I'm doing other things. I recommended this podcast to a random stranger in the airport that I saw was looking for something to listen to. And when we got off the plane, she thanked me for the awesome recommendation. Bottom line,
yeah, Arlene.
Hell yeah. She said, bottom line, it's a great podcast, and it feels like I'm talking with my friends. You won't regret listening to it. Thank you so much, Arlene. I read that, and I was like, that's exactly, when me and Emily talked about doing this, that was exactly what we wanted.
Those were the vibes we wanted.
The vibe we're going for is, of course, we want it to be factual. We want it to be respectful, but we want it to feel like your friend on the couch next to you with a glass of wine in her hand telling you about this crazy story she heard. So that made me feel really good. And we did. Arlene's got some merch coming her way.
Hell yeah.
I sent her some merch. I was like, that just, I don't know, something about it. I'm like, she's just telling random people in the airport. Like, that made me so happy.
Yeah, I love that.
So and anyone who shares the word about us, we appreciate you.
That actually reminds me of what I brought up in our last episode that we can no longer put out there about my Uncle Curtis. Every time he sees
Uncle
me,
Curtis.
He's our biggest fan. Every time he sees me, he goes, I feel like I just hung out with you because I listen to your podcast all the time when I'm driving to work. And I go,
love that.
Uncle Curtis, you're our favorite.
Yeah, shout out Uncle Curtis. Thank you so much. I guess with that being said, because some people might be new here because your friend just sent you this episode and you're like, damn, we're 6 minutes in and they haven't even gotten to the story yet.
Hey, friend.
Let's get to the story. This is a really, really horrific case. I want to warn people up front. And if you are pregnant, I request that you read this episode description where I summarize the story before you listen to this episode. You just probably would like a little bit of a warning.
If you're pregnant, planning to become pregnant, wait, there's 3.
Are you trying to do the medical?
Yeah, there's 3 though. What's
no,
the other
I think
one?
anybody else is like, anybody else is okay.
Okay.
But if you are currently pregnant, it just might be a little bit spooky for you.
Okay.
So Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind was a young Indigenous woman full of promise and joy. She was a member of the Spirit Lake Sioux Tribe. She lived in Fargo, North Dakota, and she was 8 months pregnant with her first child in the summer of 2017. At 22 years old, Savanna was known for her loving personality, and she was very close with her family. Like, her family, they just vibed. They got along. They spent a lot of time together, and she was actually temporarily living with her parents and her siblings in an apartment. But she was actually preparing to move into a new home with her longtime boyfriend, Ashton Matheny, who was the father of her child. Now, the couple had been together for 7 years, so they've been dating since they were like since she was 15.
Damn.
7 years. I'm like, that's
like high school sweethearts.
Yeah, that's so sweet, and it's they grew up together.
Yeah,
you know,
I love that.
And they were excitedly awaiting the birth of their daughter, who they were going to name Hazley Joe. Isn't that so cute?
The name
Hazley Joe. I love that. Now, Savanna had aspirations of a career in healthcare. She wanted to work in like elder care and was looking forward to building a life with Ashton and Hazley Joe in the same Fargo neighborhood that she had always called home. Now, on August 19th, 2017, what started as an ordinary day turned into a nightmare. That afternoon, Savanna, who was heavily pregnant with Hazley Joe, again, 8 months pregnant at the time, she was at home in her apartment that she shared with her parents. And upstairs in the same building, there was a couple that lived there. That was 38-year-old Brooke Cruz and her boyfriend, William Hone. Now, although Savanna didn't know them very well, Cruz came down and knocked on the Greywind's door that day with a request. She offered Savanna $20 to come upstairs and model a dress that Cruz was supposedly sewing. This is already red flag to me because Savanna's 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So why would you want her to model a dress that you're sewing? Because you would assume it's for yourself.
Yeah, she's not going to be the same size and by the time the dress is ready, I guess.
Right. But it wasn't for Savanna. Like I assume she was sewing this dress for herself. And it's like, if Savannah's 8 months pregnant, I don't know. Maybe Savanna was smaller than her before her pregnancy. And so but to me, that was already like, red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Weird.
Now, always helpful by nature, Savanna agreed. She wanted to just be helpful, and she's like, I'm going to make $20. Heck yeah. And so she tells her mother she'll be right back, and she went upstairs with Cruz, completely unaware that she was walking into a trap.
Uh-oh.
Once inside apartment number 5 upstairs, Savanna was brutally attacked.
What the hell?
According to later court testimony, as soon as Savanna entered the bathroom, Cruz shoved her, causing Savanna's head to slam against the sink and knocking her unconscious. Now, this is all according to one side of the story. We do not have Savanna's side of the story, so I want everybody to understand that what I'm saying here is according to people who ended somebody's life.
So take it with a heavy grain of salt.
Right. They're saying, I shoved her and Savanna's head slammed against the sink and it knocked her unconscious. And, oopsie. I don't think that was an oopsie. I think that this was all very planned and done on purpose. Mm-hmm. But this is the way the story is told, like in court. Now, with the pregnant woman incapacitated, Cruz put a horrific plan into motion. She retrieved a blade, which was later described as a small razor or carpenter's knife, and used it to cut open Savanna's abdomen, intent on taking the baby out by force.
Oh my God.
As Savanna drifted in and out of consciousness, Brooke Cruz crudely delivered the infant girl from Savanna's womb in what can only be described as an unspeakable act of violence. Savanna, gravely wounded and defenseless, had no chance to fight back. The healthy baby girl was pulled from her mother's body, and in that moment, the young mother's fate was sealed.
Holy shit.
Just cut the baby out of her womb with a razor blade. How do you even know once you cut the skin open? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's very obvious where the baby, I'm sure it's probably obvious, like, where the baby is, like, what organ to cut open. Mm-hmm. That made me sick to that's why I was like, I want pregnant women to read this episode description and, like, be warned before I start talking about this. But
yeah,
that is so horrific in so many ways. Now, in the midst of this brutality, again, this is all according to these people, and there are conflicting stories between the two of them, but we do know that William Hone was at the apartment at some point. He says that he came home after this all happened, but we'll kind of get to the conflicting stories. Okay. This is the story that they tell, though. In the midst of the brutality, William Hone comes home to the apartment, and he walks into the bathroom, and this is when he is met with a blood-soaked scene. His girlfriend, Cruz, had just cut a newborn baby from Savanna's body, and according to Cruz's later statement, Hone asked if Savanna was dead. And this is when Cruz replied that she didn't know. She's like, I don't know if she's alive or dead. And he then fetched a rope and looped it around Savanna's neck, tightening it to make sure she was deceased.
Fuck.
He then coldly said to Cruz, and again, this is according to Cruz, quote, "If she wasn't dead before, she is now," end quote. Now, Hone would later deny physically harming Savanna, and he says that this must have been Cruz. And he says that when he got to the apartment, she was already dead, and the baby had already been taken out of her. And
was the baby alive?
The baby, yes, the baby is
survived.
Alive. Yes,
Damn.
And so Cruz's testimony is basically saying, yeah, William Hone was a part of this murder.
Yeah,
he was an active participant. But William Hone is saying, no, I didn't actively participate. I just came home and this was this had already been done, and I panicked and helped cover it up.
Yeah.
I say fucking bullshit.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
I don't believe it. And again, this is all what I was saying about like being neutral. I try and be neutral. So the reason I say that I don't believe it is like
Clorox Sentiva smells like lavender. Cleans like Clorox. And feels like...
All right, that could go on for a while. Experience the long-lasting freshness of Clorox Sentiva. Available in Clorox Sentiva Lavender Scented Bleach. Use as directed.
Subtle results, still you, but with fewer lines. Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, is a prescription medicine used to temporarily make moderate to severe frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better in adults.
Effects of Botox Cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Don't receive Botox Cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow and eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Tell your doctor about medical history, muscle or nerve conditions including ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. For full safety information, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
See for yourself at BotoxCosmetic.com.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
To give you my opinion, but also so you know, I have a biased opinion on this. Like, I think he actively participated, but allegedly, I think he allegedly actively participated.
Allegedly.
But I don't know. You know, I wasn't there. That's just, there's something in my gut telling me if you helped cover this up,
you're
like
an active participant.
Yeah. Now, together, this couple now had an infant, a newborn baby girl who had miraculously survived this violent birth, and the gravely injured mother who soon succumbed to her wounds. And in a matter of minutes, Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind had been murdered in order to steal her child. So immediately after the attack, Cruz and Hone set about they're covering up the crime. They're like, oh shit, now we have a dead body, a newborn baby that we have to hide. They live above her family in the same apartment building.
Yeah, that's what's crazy to me.
And she had gone down there while the family was home and asked Savanna, hey, I'll pay you $20 if you come model this dress. And now Savannah's just never going to come back.
That's fucking nuts.
Like, what was the plan here?
Yeah.
And what gets me, like, they killed this girl for nothing. Not that if it had worked out, it would have been fine. You know, I'm not saying that. But it's like, they didn't even get anything out of it. Like, they killed her for nothing.
Yeah, like, what was the motive? You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously the baby, but what was the motive to get for the baby? You know what I'm saying?
I got you there. I got answers for you because there is a backstory to this.
Okay, I need it.
So, immediately after this attack, they're trying to cover up this crime. And Hone later tells police that when he arrived home that afternoon, he found Cruz cleaning up the blood in the bathroom before showing him the newborn baby girl, claiming, quote, "This is our baby. This is our family now," end quote. So again, he's saying, I had nothing to do with it. I just came home. This was already done. And then I helped cover it up. Mm-hmm. So the pair hid Savanna's lifeless body in their apartment, at one point stuffing her into a small bathroom closet to keep her out of sight.
Oh my God, this poor fucking girl.
It gets fucking worse. This is like...
It started worse. What do you mean?
Yeah, this one I know. It really starts horrific. A lot of the times I kind of start with background story, but this is just like one of those cases. It is so horrific. There's no way to like, I don't know. And
yeah.
So they began disposing of evidence. Hone admitted to investigators that he had hauled garbage bags filled with bloody towels and his own blood-stained shoes out of the apartment and dumped them in a trash dumpster, like at another location in the city. Just took them to a random dumpster. Their plan, it seemed, was to pretend that the infant was their own newborn child and to eliminate any trace of Savanna. Brooke Cruz had a twisted motive for this scheme because what had happened was that earlier that year, she lied to William and told him that she was pregnant, apparently hoping to please him because they were always breaking up and getting back together and whatever. And so basically, he wanted to have kids. She pulled one of
those.
Exactly. And so he wanted to have kids, so she tells him that she's pregnant, trying to kind of get
lock him in.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, when Hone discovered that this was a lie, he figures this out in August, and he's furious. And according to Brooke, he pressured her to, quote unquote, produce a baby.
Uh-oh.
Which is...
interesting choice of words.
Yeah, you need to produce a baby. Because he had already told everybody that they were having a baby.
So he's like, I'm not going to tell them we're not.
Well, I mean, you could imagine that's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
And this is where Cruz is like, no, I meant that we should have a baby, but that is not how, or I'm sorry, William said, oh, I meant we should have a baby, but that is not how Brooke took it. She was like, oh, obviously. I have to find a baby.
She's like, elsewhere. I gotta obtain a baby. Okay.
And because again, he's telling people he's going to be a dad. And Cruz later testified that she took Hone's casual remark about, quote unquote, that Greywind girl being really pregnant as a sign that he wanted her to steal Savanna's baby. Because he said that you need to produce a baby. And then at another point he said, well, that Greywind girl is really pregnant, ... And she's like, okay, I'm now
They just picked the closest pregnant woman in the vicinity?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Fucking heartbreaking. And I think about Ashton. High school sweethearts had been together since she was 15 years old, grew up together.
Oh my God.
And they were about to move in together and have this baby. And 8 months, they were a month away. And
that gives me chills because that makes me so sad.
The whole thing is just heinous. And in Cruz's mind, it was all justified. She recalled thinking later.
How the fuck? Let's hear it. How does she think that this is justified?
Because she acts like it's all him, like he made her.
Oh, he told me to do this.
She said, quote, I had better have a baby no matter how it happened, end quote.
Excuse me.
Or you just let him go.
Yeah. I mean.
Find somebody who loves you for you.
Or like also adoption is possible.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
You know?
Foster. You could foster.
You could get a kid any other fucking way, but then stealing it out of the womb.
I just can't.
There's a lot of other ways.
There's something just next level.
Yeah, like
about the, like I can't think of anything more horrific. And I'm not going to try.
If somebody told me to produce a baby, my first mind would be like, oh, okay, like let's have a baby then. You know?
I get the impression that they had been trying and it wasn't successful, but again, it's like
so she like panicked and was like, all right, well, what about?
She just lied and then I get. Anyway, I could go on for 5 hours about how fucking horrific this is, but I'm gonna keep moving forward because honestly, I don't like thinking about it too deeply.
No, it's like making my hands sweaty.
Yeah, me too. So in an act of cold calculation, Brooke Cruz enacted a fetal abduction, brutally killing Savanna to abduct her unborn child, all in this desperate bid to fulfill her lie and keep her boyfriend from leaving her. Now, when Savanna didn't return home that afternoon, her family knew immediately that something was wrong. Her mother, Norberta Greywind, grew alarmed after her daughter had been gone for more than an hour. She's like, she was just supposed to model this dress. Why is this taking more than an hour? So Norberta and her husband Joe scoured the apartment building looking for Savanna, and they eventually knocked on the door of Brooke Cruz's third floor unit to ask about Savanna. Cruz calmly claimed that Savanna had left her apartment earlier in the day, and she didn't know where Savanna went. She thought she was going back home.
Meanwhile, she's in the closet.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
Unsatisfied and deeply worried, the Greywinds called the Fargo police to report Savanna missing later that day. They immediately launches this massive search effort that gripped the local community for the next week. Now, police officers responded quickly on the evening of August 19th, and officers visited Cruz and Hone's apartment because this was the last place that Savanna was known to be. And so they go to the apartment to look for any sign of the missing woman. Now, Cruz lets them in. And at around 5 p.m. that day, police conducted a cursory search of the apartment. Now, basically, they don't have like a search warrant for this. This is like a voluntary. Cruz is like, yes, come on in. So they can't really just be, it's not like they can start taking items.
Yeah, they can just like browse and see what's openly there.
Right, exactly. However, this is what I will say. I think they should have looked a little harder. I try not to be too like armchair detective-y, but I don't think that the police, in my mind, it seems like they weren't taking this as
seriously as they should have.
Yeah, obviously they had no idea what had happened to this girl, and in hindsight, it's really easy to say.
Yeah.
But I think I get the impression that they were kind of operating under the assumption that this was all a big misunderstanding and she was just somewhere else. But they were like looking because the family asked them to look in that apartment. And because the people were like calm and they just let them in voluntarily, they didn't expect to find anything.
Yeah, like nothing was like hitting their red flag bells.
Right. And it's like my impression might be wrong. Maybe that's not the case, but again, just my impression. So they go in, they don't find anything amiss, but according to later testimony, Savanna's body was at that time hidden in a closet, and the newborn baby was concealed under blankets next to where Hone was sitting, out of the officer's view.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was gonna say, how did they, like, what did they do with the baby?
Well, that's the thing is, like, these people are so fucking brazen. They're letting the police in just hoping that this baby doesn't cry.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't newer babies, well...
They cry.
Yeah, I was going to say...
I live with a newborn baby right now, and he cries.
Yeah, but like when they first come out, don't they have to... Like, a nurse usually has to make them cry, don't they? If they're not already crying when they come out.
I don't know.
To, like, make sure they're...
I don't know. I've never birthed. I never birthed anything, so I don't know. Now, with little to go on, authorities treated Savanna's case as a missing persons case, and they continued their efforts the next day. So on August 20th, police returned to the building and they again searched their apartment, finding no trace of Savanna. In reality, though, Cruz and Hone were still steps ahead of police. That day, Hone had hollowed out an old dresser in their apartment and placed Savanna's body inside, wrapping her in towels and plastics to like hide the evidence of a crime occurring. And this is all because the police are looking for her. There's a missing persons case. They're searching the building, so they can't take her out of the apartment at this point.
Yeah.
And he hollows out a dresser. That is something that is so...
Yeah, that's fucking wild
to me.
I've never heard of that. That's fucking insane.
That is like you hear these like spooky stories of people hiding stuff in the walls, and that gives me that I'm going to have nightmares about this story, I think. Now, the dresser with Savanna's remains sealed inside was sitting in the apartment even as officers looked around during the second search.
Wait, so this is the day after it happened, right?
This is the day after. They
Wouldn't
come back.
It get, like, smelly?
That's what I'm saying. They searched the apartment a second time. And she is still in there. And the baby is still in there. And they don't find anything.
What the fuck?
And they don't find anything. I'm like, how? And the other thing is like the day before when they searched the apartment the first time, this was hours after.
Yeah.
They cut a baby from her womb. How was there not? There had to be bloody stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Remember he like threw away a bag of towels and stuff. But like, I just feel like there's no way they got every little piece. And that's what makes me think that the police they weren't expecting to find anything in there at first.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, they get to them. And they start to get really suspicious of these people very quickly. But I just think that, and again, I wasn't there. Maybe they were like, no, you can't go in the bathroom. Or no, you can't, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just is crazy to me to think it's not like this is a mansion, it's an apartment.
Yeah, there's probably like 3 fucking rooms total.
Yeah, and it's like, how do you not find any evidence when there is the dead body of this poor young girl and a newborn baby?
Yeah. Oh my God.
I just don't get it. Now
that, and how did nobody hear him like hollowing out a dresser?
Well, and this is what I don't get is this was done during the daytime.
Yeah. Like, how did
no one hear this happening? Like, I would assume
her
she's
neighbors?
screaming. I would assume she's screaming. I don't know.
Well, if she was unconscious, then she because she smacked her head and she was unconscious.
You're right. I hope she was unconscious. I hope she didn't consciously experience that.
Yeah. Damn.
Now, the very next morning, August 21st, the couple carried the dresser down the stairs and loaded it into their Jeep to dispose of her body. All the while, Fargo police and firefighters, later aided by volunteer citizens, frantically searched the neighborhood, the parks, the surrounding areas for any sign of the missing pregnant woman. Did any of the neighbors just think, it's kind of weird that they're moving a dresser out 2 days later?
They're just taking it out when all of this shit is going down. Like,
I don't
that's
know.
a little sus.
Now, as the days passed with no leads, the disappearance drew immense attention and support from the community. Hundreds of volunteers joined law enforcement in canvassing Fargo and neighboring Moorhead, Minnesota, handing out flyers and scouring the riverbanks and fields for clues. Savanna's relatives and the local community refused to give up hope. The case also began to attract regional and national media coverage due to the disturbing nature of the case and Savanna's status as a young expectant mother. Of course, it's like, she's 8 months pregnant. Like, how does she just disappear?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, investigators grew increasingly suspicious of Cruz and Hone, since they had been the last people to see Savanna alive. Fargo police continued to monitor the pair and gathered evidence.
But they didn't notice them carrying out a dresser.
That's what I'm saying. Which, it's like, in hindsight, it seems obvious, but like if you weren't suspicious of them at first, it's like, of course, like you're going to have an officer sit there watching these random people all day?
Yeah. But like they said, they were the last people to see her. So, I mean, I would automatically be suspicious of them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. By August 24th, authorities felt that they had enough cause to execute a comprehensive search warrant on the couple's apartment. So this time it's like, now it doesn't matter what the couple says. They can search for whatever is in the warrant. And so this time they conducted a painstaking top to bottom search of the unit. And this was their 4th search of this apartment in 5 days.
Damn.
But now they have that full legal authority to tear the place apart if necessary.
Get the deets.
And this 4th search finally cracked the case open because
Thank
during
God.
the thorough sweep, Fargo detective Phil Swan spotted a subtle movement out of the corner of his eye.
The babe.
Something stirred amongst a pile of pillows at the head of the bed. And to the shock of everyone present, it was a newborn baby girl, alive and quietly lying on the bed, weighing just 4 pounds and 13 ounces.
4 pounds.
Now,
how did this baby survive?
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic, famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
That's what's so crazy. Now, she was dehydrated, but she was in astonishingly good health given the circumstances of her very, very violent and crude C-section birth.
Yeah, like her entering into this world was like fucking the roughest.
Yeah. Now, Cruz had apparently been caring for the baby in secret, and police immediately seized the baby and rushed her to the hospital for evaluation, and they put her in protective custody while they did DNA testing to confirm that this was Savanna's baby. Mm-hmm. Now, Brooke Cruz and William Hone were promptly arrested at the scene after they discovered the baby. And at that point, the suspects still refused to tell police what had happened to Savanna herself, but officers had strong reason to fear the worst. Of course, they find the baby. They are presuming at this point that this is Savanna's baby and that sadly Savanna is probably no longer alive. Mm-hmm. However, for the time being, the authorities focused on finding Savanna, and of course, their hope was that they would find her alive, although they didn't really think that was likely.
Yeah.
Now, the break in the case came 3 days later on the evening of August 27th, 2017, when two kayakers paddling on the Red River, which runs between North Dakota and Minnesota, noticed something unusual caught in a snag. Upon closer inspection, they made a grim discovery. It was the body of a female wrapped in plastic and duct tape floating among the reeds. Now, police and rescue personnel imagine finding something like that.
Yeah. Holy shit.
You would never.
I think I would have to retire from my job. I don't think I could ever recover from that, seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, you're never the same after that. That's horrific and yeah. So police and rescue personnel were called in, and by that night, the body was confirmed to be Savanna LaFontaine-Greywind. The beautiful 22-year-old mother-to-be with her whole life ahead of her had been dumped in the river like trash. That same day, in a coincidence, volunteer searchers on the Minnesota side of the Red River, which is south of where her body was found, they come across suspicious items at an abandoned farmstead. Now, investigators believe that this remote farm, which had been vacant for decades by this point, was a secondary crime scene probably used by Cruz and Hone to temporarily hide Savanna's body or other evidence. So this farm was secured and processed by law enforcement for additional forensic clues. With the recovery of Savanna's body, the missing person case turned into a homicide case. And an autopsy later confirmed that Savanna died from quote-unquote homicidal violence, though the medical examiner could not say for certain whether the fatal injury was the massive blood loss from the crude C-section or if it was from strangulation by the rope, as both injuries were present. So they don't know which one killed her. Now, on August 28th, police announced the tragic outcome to the public and formally charged Brooke Cruz and William Hone for their roles in Savanna's death. The couple was charged in Cass County District Court with conspiracy to commit murder, which is a charge that can carry life in prison without parole, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and providing false information to law enforcement. The community that had been holding its breath was devastated by the news of Savanna's death, even as they felt relief that her baby had been saved. Fargo's police chief David Todd, in a somber press conference, expressed the collective heartbreak and outrage at the cruel and vicious nature of the crime. The investigators' quick resolution, locating the baby and identifying the perpetrators within days of Savanna's disappearance, was credited to the tireless work of local authorities and volunteers. But many questions still loomed, and the case was far from over because they still had a job to do, which was to pursue justice through the court system. So the legal proceedings for this case moved pretty swiftly because within days of their arrest, Brooke Cruz and William Hone made initial court appearances via video from jail, where a judge set bail at $2 million cash.
Hell yeah.
For each.
Love to hear that.
Love to see it.
Oh, yeah.
And basically the judge cited the heinousness of the crime and the risk that they might flee for the reasoning for this bail amount.
I don't think that they should have gotten bail at all.
Yeah, I wonder, they can do that, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No bail set? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, both defendants initially pleaded not guilty to the charges against them. Investigators, meanwhile, continued gathering evidence, including forensic analysis from the apartment, from Savanna's body, and digital evidence like the couple's internet searches, which ominously included travel plans suggesting an attempted escape. So I think their plan was to take this baby and leave and get out of there before anybody figured it out. Mm-hmm. So public sentiment was overwhelmingly in favor of harsh punishment, and the case drew wide media coverage. In December 2017, just a few months after the murder, Brooke Cruz abruptly changed her plea because she originally pleaded not guilty, but instead of going to trial, she decides to change her plea to guilty for all three charges: conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and providing false information to police, because obviously they were lying every time the police came to search. Mm-hmm. She said she was trying to take responsibility. I think she was trying to get a lighter sentence by quote unquote taking responsibility.
Guilt. Yeah.
But I did see some online speculation where people were like, oh, she's just trying to avoid the death penalty. But I looked it up and North Dakota doesn't actually have the death penalty. So I don't know. To me, her reasons for changing the plea are still kind of unclear. But I think it was probably just trying okay, they found the baby in my apartment. I'm going to be found guilty no matter what.
Yeah.
So in February 2018, Cruz faced a sentencing hearing that basically solidified her fate. The gruesome details of Savanna's death were recounted in court for all to hear. Brooke Cruz herself addressed Savanna's family directly, apologizing tearfully and saying she wished she could take it all back. Shut the fuck up, you fucking bitch.
Yeah,
shut the fuck up.
Yeah, are you kidding me right now?
Just don't even.
I wish I could take it all back. Well, you fucking can't.
I don't even have words. I can't imagine.
If I was any of her family members and I heard that, I think I would lose my shit.
I can't. That's all I got to say about it. You're going to cry about it? You're going to cry about it?
Yeah.
That just... There's not a word for the emotion that makes me feel hearing that. However, these expressions of remorse did very little to sway the court. No one fucking cared. Good. Because you literally cut a baby out of a 22-year-old girl's stomach and killed her.
I think it's a little wild that she thought that that would work.
Yeah,
I
would just say I'm sorry. I don't have anything to say. Anyway, the judge sentenced Brooke Cruz to life in prison without the possibility of parole, effectively ensuring that she would spend the rest of her life behind bars. Good. Rot in hell.
Well deserved.
Rot in hell.
Well deserved.
Additionally, Cruz received another 20-year sentence on top of that for the kidnapping conspiracy, because the kidnapping charges are for the baby. They kidnapped this baby.
Yeah.
And a 163-day sentence for providing false information to police. In delivering the sentence, the judge and prosecutors emphasized the brutality of Cruz's actions. The Fargo police chief, speaking to the media, called it a shocking crime. And again, condemned the act as one of pure depravity. And that is, like, I just think such a good word for it. Like,
yeah.
Depravity. Now, Savanna's family members gave emotional victim impact statements. Her mother, Norberta, said her heart was, quote, literally broken, and the nightmares are horrific, end quote. The nightmares are horrific. If this is your own, I feel like my nightmares are going to be horrific just from reading this. Imagine this happened to someone you fucking love.
I think what's creepier for me is that it was in the same building, literally like a couple floors above their fucking apartment.
And then
like,
they went and
lived there.
And they went and knocked on the door looking for her, and she was in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't. I sometimes we talk about these cases, and I feel so bad because I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say about that. Like, that is so fucking horrific, and that's why I curse so much. Is because like it's like, I don't know. It's just horrific. Now, there was little doubt that Cruz's punishment was appropriate for such a monstrous crime.
I think, honestly, the same should be done to her for that.
Yeah, I like it.
Like, that's fucked up, you know?
I like it. I just think if your crime is this cruel and unusual,
like this is like, I don't know. I just can't imagine another person doing that to somebody else and just like acting like it was not a big deal. I think her saying that, oh, I regret it and I wish it never happened, I think that was something her lawyer probably fucking told her.
Oh, you regret it? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I wish I could take it all back.
Yeah, like what?
Shut up.
Are you a toddler that
Like
doesn't know fucking consequences from your actions?
You didn't know what the consequences of you murdering a 22-year-old girl and cutting the baby out of her womb?
Yeah.
You didn't think the consequences were going to be, and I'm not even just talking about the consequences for her, but the consequences for everybody, because apparently she feels so, I think it's all bullshit. But
she's fucking lucky that baby survived, because she would have had two more charges, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Survive,
but are you ready to get more angry?
No.
Because let's talk about William Hone and his convoluted.
Yeah, let's hear what he has to fucking say about this shit.
Well, he maintained that he did not know about, or like he didn't help plan the murder. And he says he came home, she was already dead. The baby was she had already done all of this, and he had only helped cover it up after the fact. But again, my opinion. Allegedly.
I don't believe it.
Allegedly, I don't believe it. Allegedly. But this man did not plead guilty. He pleaded not guilty. And he goes to trial in September 2018 on the same charges: conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to commit kidnapping, and lying to police. During the trial, Brooke Cruz took the stand as the prosecution's star witness, recounting in detail how Hone allegedly joined her in the bathroom, and he was the one that had wrapped the rope around Savanna's neck and strangled her to ensure that she was dead. Cruz also testified about the twisted backstory of her fake pregnancy and how she felt pressure to steal a baby, and she was basically just casting Hone as the one who had pushed her towards this crime. Hone, in his testimony, flatly denied that he ever hurt Savanna or that he had any agreement with Cruz to attack her. He claimed that he just came home that day, and he truly believed that Cruz had unexpectedly given birth to their child, and then he was horrified when he discovered Savanna's dead body.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's weird, though, because you guys already told this whole story about how you knew you had found out the pregnancy was fake. So yeah. I'm really fucking confused.
Yeah, like what's going on?
Sounds like a lie to
me.
Yeah,
what's that about?
But that's just me. Now, the trial essentially just became this he said, she said situation with Cruz, who was now a convicted murderer, telling a story implicating Hone, and then Hone portraying himself as this unwitting accomplice who just out of panic helped dispose of evidence and dispose of Savanna's remains.
Yeah, and you just happened to hide her in a fucking dresser? Like, what?
Are you ready?
No.
Because after hearing all the evidence, the jury acquitted William Hone of conspiracy to commit murder in Savanna's death.
Shut the fuck up right now. Please.
Because they're like, look, the only evidence we have that he participated is what Brooke Cruz is saying. And, she's a fucking murderer. So, her credibility is tarnished at this point.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
At Rocket, we believe everyone deserves their shot at the American dream. So if you're feeling locked out of home ownership, we're here to give you back the keys. We're opening doors, breaking down walls, and doing everything we can to turn renters into owners. And we're not going to stop until we help everyone home. To find out more, visit rocket.com. Rocket, own the dream.
Now through April 14th at Sephora, everything you love is on sale.
I don't gotta choose, I'll take this and that.
That's right, everything. Save on your beauty faves at Sephora, now through April 14th.
I'll take this and that.
Find brands like Rare Beauty, Youth to the People, Day, Glossier, and more on sale. Shop at Sephora and Sephora at Kohl's today. Limitations apply, must be a beauty insider. See terms at Sephora.com for complete details.
So they just thought that she did all of that by herself?
They thought that he helped after the fact, but that he didn't participate in the killing. Or it's not even that they thought that. They thought there was reasonable doubt that he had participated in the actual killing of Savanna.
Okay.
Again, you know my opinion, and he has been found not guilty on that charge. So we can't say he was. I allegedly think
that might be incorrect.
Yes. But if, that's the jury's job is there reasonable doubt, and that's made to protect us all. The good news, and I hate to call it good news, but he was found guilty of conspiracy to commit kidnapping and providing false information to police. And he didn't go to trial for these. He pleaded guilty to those, saying, look, I did cover this up, but I didn't participate in the killing. So in October 2018, a judge sentenced him on those two charges. And because of Hone's prior criminal record, including a 2012 conviction for child abuse and a domestic violence conviction involving Cruz in 2016, the judge initially imposed a life sentence without the possibility of parole for Hone's role. Basically, he designated him as a dangerous offender. So
I would have to say so, yeah.
The problem is, though, with the sentence is that, the Supreme Court reviews it in 2019, and they ruled that the trial judge had misapplied the law in giving a life term for those charges. They said, basically, the law does not back up that you can give him a life sentence without parole for these types of charges.
Okay, well, I mean...
The state Supreme Court noted that the maximum allowable prison term under the charges was significantly lower, and they overturned the life sentence as unlawful. As a result, in October 2019, William Hone was resentenced. The judge, expressing very little sympathy, said, quote, I want to sentence you to as long as I can by law, end quote. Huzzah to that judge.
I love that. It was the same judge, too?
I don't think it was the same judge.
Okay.
I don't know for certain. I didn't know the judges' names, but I'm pretty sure this is a different judge.
Hell yeah. I love that all the judges are like, no, fuck this guy.
Yeah. Huzzah to that judge.
Yeah.
Now, so he says that, and then he imposes the maximum sentence, which was 20 years in prison for the kidnapping conspiracy, plus a year for lying to police, and they would be served concurrently. So he's getting 20 years total. With this sentence, and given credit for time already served since 2017, Hone will likely remain incarcerated into the 2030s.
Hell yeah, I love to hear that.
I don't know. That doesn't sound. That's like.
Oh, that's coming up. Fuck.
It's like he might be in there another 10 to 15 years. I don't like that.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't realize that the 2030s are
7 years
creeping
away.
Up on us.
Dude,
yeah,
7
what
years
the
away.
Fuck?
Now, the judge grimly pointed out that Savanna's baby, who was returned to her family and has been growing up with them.
I love that.
I know.
I love that she got to go back to her family.
This is what the judge pointed out that it's gonna fuck everybody up.
Ugh.
When he gets out of prison, Hazley Joe will still be in high school. Or I'm sorry, when he is first eligible for parole. I doubt he'll be let out.
Yeah.
But if he is let out the first time he is eligible for parole, she will still be in high school.
Could you imagine,
I like the first judge that was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I know what the law says.
Put him in forever.
But fucking put him in there. Honestly, I'm joking. I know there's laws for a reason.
Yeah.
But you guys, come on. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Fuck
in
this
the
guy.
end, both perpetrators of this crime received substantial prison sentences. Not substantial enough, in my opinion, but that's just me. Cruz will never be released, and Hone will spend not enough years behind bars in prison for this atrocity, in my opinion. Now, Savanna's family, they're like, okay, we're glad justice has kind of been served, at least for Cruz, but they're feeling the same way that we are about Hone's sentence.
They're like, he's going to get out, and she's going to be terrified, and what the fuck?
And to me, it's like putting people in prison is not just about protecting the public. It's not just about, can they be real? I think it is about punishment, partially. Part of it is about putting dangerous offenders away so other people don't get hurt. But I truly believe that people who do that, they should get punished. It's not just about keeping people safe from them. It's about punishing them for what they've done. Yeah, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Now, the legal resolution of this case brought some measure of closure, but the impact of Savanna's loss and the extraordinary circumstances of the crime continued to resonate far beyond the courtroom. In the wake of this tragedy, the focus shifted to caring for Savanna's surviving child and ensuring that such crimes were prevented in the future. Now, by September 2017, this is when Hazley Joe was reunited with the family because they had to keep her in protective custody until DNA tests confirmed that she was actually Savanna's baby. Mm-hmm. And when she was given back to the family, she was placed in the care of her father, Ashton Matheny, who, like I said,
Oh.
This poor man, he lost his girlfriend that he had been with for 7 years since he was a teenager is brutally murdered. And now, I'm so happy that the baby, that Hazley Joe, it was okay and they get to grow up.
That's a fucking miracle that she survived that. 4 pounds, and she was in there for, I don't know how they were caring for her because they don't have breast milk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
they
saying?
Must have been giving her formula or I don't know. The whole thing is crazy. And despite the trauma surrounding her birth, Hazley Joe seemed to thrive after this.
Damn.
In the years since, Ashton has raised his daughter with the help of Savanna's parents, which makes me so happy that they're close. In her life, and they're still close, and they all get to have a piece of Savanna with them.
Yeah.
And Ashton reports that she's grown into a very happy, healthy child with a very loving and caring home, which it brings me a little bit of peace with the story, which peace is not what I think of when I think of this story.
Not at all.
Now, photos shared by the Greywind family show Hazley Joe as a smiling little girl, and she's been doted on by her grandparents and her cousins. To this day, they make sure that Hazley knows about her mother. While nothing can replace Savanna, Hazley provides some comfort and hope to the grieving family. And the community has also rallied to support them. They held benefit events and fundraisers, and they had a GoFundMe campaign to help Ashton and Hazley Joe as they built a new life together. Savanna's family has kept her memory alive, celebrating her love for her child and affirming that out of this darkness, a precious life had been saved. And beyond the personal aftermath, Savanna's murder had a wider impact on society and actually inspired legislative change. Her case became a rallying point in the movement to protect Indigenous women from violence. Native American leaders and activists highlighted that Savanna was far, far from the only Native woman to suffer such a fate. Thousands of Indigenous women are missing or murdered across the country every single year, often without adequate response or media attention. And in my mind, when I heard this story, it immediately made me think of Laci Peterson, because just like Laci, Savanna was 8 months pregnant when she went missing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if you guys noticed, but the media response to each case has been drastically different. Laci Peterson's disappearance in 2002 dominated national headlines for months, with continuous coverage and widespread public interest, while Savanna's 2017 case, though equally tragic, received only a fraction of the attention. And this stark contrast exemplifies the ongoing crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women being overlooked by mainstream media and law enforcement. So despite the horrifying details of Savanna's murder, her baby cut from her womb and her body discarded in a river like trash. The lack of sustained national coverage just reflects the systemic failure to value Indigenous lives equally. And I will be the first one to call ourselves out on participating in this failure of giving media attention to the cases of missing and murdered Indigenous people, not just women, people. Because I realized when I was covering this, I'm like, this is the first case of an Indigenous victim that we've covered. We're like almost 50 episodes into this podcast. Mm-hmm. That's not a good stat right there. Not something that I'm happy about. So while we're talking about this, I wanted to highlight two podcasts that I came across while I was looking into Savanna's case that highlight the stories of missing and murdered Indigenous victims. So the first is called We Are Resilient, an MMIP true crime podcast. And the second is called Stolen Sisters. So I was like checking out episodes. That one of them had an episode about Savanna's case, but both are fantastic true crime podcasts, and they focus on the stories of missing and murdered Indigenous people, and they're really trying to bring more attention to it. And that is how I heard like about Savanna's case. These are stories that are just as interesting and intriguing and deserve just as much attention as true crime podcasts like ours, where we cover a bunch of different cases. Like we don't really have like a specific niche, but you guys, please check out these podcasts. I genuinely think you'll, again, enjoy is not the right word ever, but I think you will appreciate them and you will find them just as intriguing. I definitely did. So the cruelty of Savanna's killing and the swift justice that followed really galvanized efforts to address the broader crisis of violence against Indigenous women. In the days after Savanna's body was discovered, the then chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, David Archambault II, declared, quote, "The vulnerability and targeting of our Native women is undeniable, and we must begin looking for new ways to urgently address this plague of violence," end quote. And I felt like that was such it was just on the note, like nailed it with, it is a plague of violence. Now, vigils were held in Savanna's honor, and her story was shared widely to raise awareness for the dangers that Native women face. Perhaps the most significant legacy of Savanna's case is the passage of Savanna's Act, a federal law named in her memory. This legislation was introduced to Congress by North Dakota Senator Heidi Heitkamp in late 2017 as a part of the bipartisan effort to improve how law enforcement agencies respond to missing and murdered Indigenous people. It took several years of advocacy. The bill faced delays and had to be reintroduced after initially stalling in 2018, but ultimately Savanna's Act won unanimous approval in Congress. That is not a sentence you hear often, unanimous approval in Congress. So I am very happy to hear that. And in October 2020, it was signed into law. So Savanna's Act mandates better coordination amongst tribal, federal, state, and local authorities in cases of missing or murdered Indigenous people and improves data collection and information sharing related to these cases. In essence, the law seeks to ensure that what happened to Savanna and the subsequent search efforts is not mishandled or ignored when similar tragedies strike in Indigenous communities. Because a lot of the times, it's not just about the media coverage and the media attention. A lot of the times, it's about the response from authorities that is completely lacking. Although Savanna's own murder was solved, her name has become a symbol of many of the Indigenous women whose disappearances or deaths have not received justice. The act bearing her name is aimed at preventing future cases from falling through the cracks and at honoring the value of Indigenous women's lives. Savanna's story is now etched into the public consciousness as both a heart-wrenching crime, but also a catalyst for change. It's been the subject of extensive media coverage at this point in time, true crime documentaries, true crime podcasts, and a book-length investigation by author Mona Gable. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can listen to that audiobook for free on Spotify. So it's by Mona Gable, Gable. Now, for the people of Fargo and the Spirit Lake Nation, Savanna's memory endures as that of a beloved daughter, sister, partner, and a new mother whose life was brutally cut short. But amid the sorrow, there is the legacy she leaves, a beautiful little girl, Hazley Jo, who embodies hope for the future.
I'm looking at pictures of her on Google right now, and she is the most beautiful little girl.
Really?
Yeah.
I honestly haven't seen, but now I'm going to Google
She just, every picture, she just looks so happy.
Oh my God.
Right?
Oh my God. And the picture of her and her dad. Mm-hmm. And dude, look how young he is.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart. He's so young.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh my God.
That was a rough one.
It was a rough one. That's why I warned. I put that warning in the beginning. I'm like, this is not going to be a good one to listen to, I think, if you're pregnant. But, well, with that being said, we've been recording for 3.5 hours now. So we're going to call it a day. But thank you for joining us for this absolutely gut-wrenching, horrific story.
Yeah, this one was a rough one.
Court is adjourned.
Bye.
Bye. Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.